I want to say one thing very quickly about my student years. I'm not supposed to talk about those, but I remember when Tom Betts did show up a year after I did, and I think we happened to be taking a canon law of marriage course together, and first exam came up, and I was a little bit nervous about it, and Tom just, and I finally said, "Are you ready for the exam?" He says, "I love exams." They're just one more way of my prove my superiority to other human beings. With that, I close my student years. When I came back from my first assignment in Papua New Guinea, I was in York, Pennsylvania, and after only having been there a year and a half, I got a call from John Pavlik asking me to come here and be on the formation staff. And I was surprised about that, but I came, and it was at the time, I think on there it has that I was guardian for 9 years or something, and I was not. When I got here, John Pavlik was the guardian, and Jim Freilich was the treasurer, and I was the vicar. We were the formation staff. Bob Herrick had just departed, being driven out by David Sierra. And so I remember pulling into the house here, and the front yard looked like it looked like a scene from a World War II movie. It was just all mud and big track marks and everything. And I got in, and I asked John Pavlik, I said, "What the heck happened out front?" He says, "Well, we used to pump our own gas in the back here. We had a gas pump and everything, saved us some money. But all of the gas tanks had to be removed inside the district, and that's where ours was, right out in front. And it just looked like a quagmire. But then through a lot of work, it got smoothed out and filled in, and within a year it was a nice green lawn again. But that was my first indication that life as I had known it here as a student was long gone. Things were changing. And that was confirmed when I got upstairs and saw that the back half of the third floor was covered in plastic. Now, you all have just been through a 3-month experience of renovating that beautiful renovation of the colloquy room. But if I can describe my 9 years here in one thing, it's just construction dust from start to finish. It started with the back half of the third floor there, and they used to be little tiny. They were very similar to the cells in the 55 wing, but we finally decided, evidently, that two of those with the wall knocked out would make one nice friar room for the perpetually professed friars who were stationed here. And so that's how it went. And it took most of a year, I think, after I was here, before that was done. But just the plaster dust was just perpetual. It was everywhere, all the time. But I do remember probably the significant event of that first 3 years was that we finally got Father Sebastian to move from the attic down into the general population after having spent 40 years in a little cell up there in the attic. I think it was Mark Gillette who actually talked him into coming down and taking the corner room on the third floor there, double exposure, and he came down without a fuss, and that's where he stayed till the end of his days here. But that was a big move. Another thing, things are not the same. Another indication that things were not the same was walking into chapel the first day after I was here and noticing this guy over in the corner who had his hair kind of shaved on top, and it was almost like Bart Simpson, but with dark hair, kind of spiky on top and close on the sides, little round glasses. And I asked Jim Frederick, I said, "Who's that?" He says, "That's Paul Dressler." I said, "Oh, this is going to be fun getting to know him." And it has been. But it was Paul's second year in vows at that time. So I got to watch this evolution of a budding but unrequited bromance between your guardian and the senior friar in the house, Father Carroll Warner, whom he always addressed as the governor. And he was by his side day in and day out, sharing Levi Garrett Golden Blend chewing tobacco with him. I've accused him of grave robbery, but Carol wasn't in the grave yet. He was just laid out in the coffin before Paul took one of the leftover packets out of the casket, saying, "Oh, he's not going to need this one." But the first 3 years there, we watched. It was starting. The New Jersey friars had joined us here, so the house was full, not just with our own friars, but in a very good fraternal spirit. Vinnie Fortunato was here, and a bunch of the guys, and just it was a nice interprovincial time. But you get the impression that big changes are ahead, all this stuff happening. And sure enough, John Pavlik gets elected to the provincial council and then gets elected vicar provincial. It's time for a new guardian. And Tom Russman was elected, not elected, but appointed. He came after being away for 25 years or something, back to the province and back into formation work. And it was a very tough transition for Tom. He'd been away from the province, the main part of the province, for a long time. Probably similar to Gary's experience coming out of New Guinea and all of a sudden finding himself guardian of Cap College, and what a kettle of fish that can be. But it was myself and Tom, and then Bill Graham joined us. He was the third man on the formation team and the treasurer, the economo. And that's when we started raising construction dust on the second floor, on the back half between the entrance to the colloquy room and the classroom. These were going to be senior friar suites, the three of them, as you know them now. And the idea was that, we wanted to get the older friars in there, where they could have their own bath and have, a life a little bit easier for their stay here. So that was construction dust for at least another year and a half, as I got into from 98 to 2001. And the memory of that is kind of bittersweet. Carol Warner would walk down every day. Every day he'd go down to see the progress he had the corner room below Sebastian, right next to the classroom. Mm-hmm. And he'd go down and check on the progress every day. He'd go down there, look it over, and then come back and wait his time. And he finally got to move in. Mm. He spent one night there, he checked into the hospital the next day and never got back. Oh. Yeah, it's kind of a sad thing. And I do remember the newly ordained deacon who was assigned to preach at his funeral was none other than Paul Dressler. And he did a wonderful job. His affection for Father Carroll was very, very evident, even though he stole his chewing tobacco. So it was construction dust again. The program was evolving. The New Jersey friars had gone on their own path of how to go about post-novitiate formation.